Hi, this is Dr. Jabali. In this video, we're going to focus on questions coming from previous IB exams on topic 9.1, which is all about transpiration and xylem. So let's go ahead and look at some of these previous IB exam questions and see what's the most common things asking about this topic. Now, remember to read the question at least 3 times. First time to get your anxiety out, second time to start learning what's the content, remember the content, and the third time you really get what the question is asking. Also, make sure to read A, B, C, D. Do not just quickly go for the B answer. If you haven't seen C or D, they might be more right and more specific. So very careful. Sometimes two sentences are exactly the same and there's only one word changing them. So with that, let's read here. Which is the most efficient way for some desert plants to conserve water? So that means they want to hold that water in, right? So these are more the desert plants. So let's see, by having no leaves, so water evaporates from the green stem with less surface. So you know that most of the evaporation happens in the leaf. So if you don't have leaf, more likely that you're not going to get any water out. So that's a possible option. By loading organic compound, which this means sugar, in the flow of roots. Now, what is putting sugar in the roots actually holding onto the water? That's not it. So it cannot be it. By accumulating salt within their tissue, so water is retained by osmosis. That is not possible because, again, if you're accumulating the tissues and salt, what if it still does a lot more on the outside? Does not work. And by growing long hair on the surface. The surface you're talking about on the outside, it won't work. Of course, if you want to have long hairs in the roots, which is not on the surface, on the bottom, and try to get water as possible as you can, that's fine. But the problem here is that you want to conserve that water. So when you're conserving the water, the one that you don't want to lose it, it's not about you want to absorb it, but you don't want to lose it. So A is more likely to be than D. So the answer is A. What allows most plants to continue producing more roots, leaves, or stems throughout their lives? So when you say more roots, more leaves, we're talking about creating cells that can become these guys. And who are these cells? Stem cells. Now, plants do have stem cells, and they usually find these in the meristems. So you can see from the word stem here. So that's part of the plant. So it's not auxin, not phloem, not cellulose. It's meristems, B. Next, excessive irrigation can cause increased salinity in the soil. So when I say salinity, that means I have a soil right here and I have increased the amount of salt. So what effect does this have on the water transport in the plant's roots? So when you think of salt, think of solute. So I'm increasing the amount of solute. So imagine I have here a tree and then I have a root right here, right? So let's say this is the root. Now, around the root, there is so much salt, so I can see that there's so much solute. And if you remember from topic 2, that water always, topic 1, water always go to a place that has a high amount of solute, and in this case can be salt. So what happens if the water is here, the water is definitely going to move in the direction outside. Why? Because outside, as you can see, there's a lot more solute outside. So the process is definitely going from the root and it's moving towards the soil. So that's the pathway. Now here says decrease the movement of water from the soil into the root. That makes sense because it's the vice versa of this. This is saying water moves from the root to the soil, which that means you're definitely decreasing from the soil to the root. But let's see the other one. Absorption of water with the high solute concentration. There's no absorption because absorption would be in direction towards the roots. So there's no absorption, definitely no D and B are out because we're not absorbing water into the roots. Increased movement of water from soil into the root. Now, like I told you, since there's so much solute on the outside, it's going out to the soil, not from the soil to the root. So it's not C, and it's definitely A. Next, which process and cause are responsible for the water uptake by the roots? Now remember the water, whenever it comes to plants, it's always about osmosis. So simple diffusion, the cohesion's out, so we have B or C. Second, we always know that water moves in direction to a place that has a high concentration of solute. So let's see, solute concentration in the root is greater than in the soil, or the solid concentration of the root is lower than the soil. It says responsible for water uptake by the roots. So you want you want the root basically to take that water. So definitely you need to have the root have a high concentration than the soil so the water can enter the roots. So B is the answer once again. Like I said, if you want the root here, if you want the water to go in, you got to make sure that the root has a lot more solute than the soil. And that's why I chose B. Now here says a cobalt chloride paper is blue when it's dry. Okay, so I'm going to say here that it's dry. And then I'm going to say it turns pink with water. So I'm going to take this pink of water. So this is with water and this is with dry. Now, the blue cobalt paper was fastened to the upper and the lower surfaces of a leaf. So I have a leaf here. And what I did was put the blue paper here on both sides. Now, after 20 minutes, many small pink dots were observed on the paper on the lower side. So I'm going to use red as the pink. So there was many dots on that blue paper, on that dry paper. And then a few pink dots were seen on the upper. So I see a couple here. Now, what conclusion can be drawn? So knowing that this is the leaf, right? And we said that on the upper, not much water came out, right? So very little. And here in the lower, we saw a lot of water come up. Now, if you remember, the leaf has stomatas. So that means there's a lot of stomatas, and that means a lot of water vapor was coming out of the lower section. So there were more stomata on the lower surface than on the upper surface. Makes sense. Stomata on the upper surface are blocked by the wax cuticle. True. If you remember the plant anatomy, there is a very wax cuticle here which basically blocks the evaporation of water. So it makes sense. So that means there will be wax here stopping, and that's why there's little water on the upper part. Makes sense. More transpiration occurs through the lower surface than through the upper surface. It makes sense. More water is coming out here, and that's why you see a lot of pink dots on the paper. So all of them are right, so this answer is D. Now, how do water molecules enter roots of the cells? Of course, you have the root cells here, in which you get solutes in, like potassium, calcium. And when you have so much solutes here, this will cause the water to move in through osmosis. So the answer is D. It's not capillary action, it's not tension. This is how we get to the root, not transpiration. Transpiration is just the pulling of the water through the leaves out as evaporation. Water going in, it goes through the process of osmosis. So the answer is D. Now, a fungicide dissolved in water. So let's say I have a bucket here of water, and I have put a fungicide here, which basically it's like a pesticide that will kill fungus. Now they put this into a soil. Okay, so they put into a soil. So I'm gonna say that I'm gonna pretend that these little red dots, it's a bunch of fungicide in the water, and now it's in the soil. Okay. Now, which a rose plant was growing. So that means there was a plant here that was growing. Now it later appeared in the leaves, and somehow that little red dot started having in the leaves. How did the fungicide reach the leaf? So that means how did these molecules move through the plant and reach all the way here? Now, since the fungicide was mixed with water, it basically is the pathway of the water. And we know that the pathway of the water is through the xylem. So in the option here we have is transpiration pulled by the xylem. Now, is it translocation by phloem? No, because the nutrients go to the phloem. Is it facilitated fusion? No, there's no channel they are passing through. And movement up a water potential gradient. So it's going up, but it's not necessarily about potential gradient. It's about the transpiration pull. That's the true answer. So it's B. Here an image is a cross-section through the Amphiphylla leaf, which grows on the coastal sand dunes. What feature suggests that Amphiphylla is a xerophyte? So remember, the xerophyte is one of the things you have to learn about its traits, which is basically found in the desert, right? So it's found in the desert, and you have to know about this. And once again, it's part of 9.1, so really know about it, because I have seen a lot of questions on xerophytes. So here it says the leaf surface area is increased. Well, the bigger the surface area compared to a tiny one like this, that means there's going to be more evaporation of water, and you don't want to have more evaporation of water in the desert, so it's definitely not A. Rolled leaves reduce the upper epidermis area. So if you roll the leaf, what are you doing? You're reducing the upper epidermis area. But the upper epidermis area usually already has cuticles, but we're going to see maybe it's possible. Roll leaves protects the lower epidermis from the wind. Now, I know the desert has a lot of wind, so when you pack it like this, of course, you're blocking the wind from taking the water out. So most likely this could be also. The lower epidermis can transpire more. Why would you want to transpire? The more you transpire, that means the more water you're taking out. You don't want to lose that in the desert. So you are between B and C. Though you can say the roll leaf does reduce the epidermis area, the upper one, but the roll leaf protects the lower epidermis from the wind. So what does it do? If you increase the wind, what does the wind do? It increases transpiration. What is transpiration? It's the loss of water. So you want to block the wind from doing it. So obviously C is more of an answer than B, because C is a little bit more detailed and makes more sense. And the roller leaf does reduce the epidermis area, but that doesn't stop from some coming out. So C is more precise. Next, there's a photomicrograph that shows a section through the top of the plant. So this right here. So this is the top of the plant. So that means if you're drawing like this and you had the tip. Now, what do you usually find on the tip? You find stem cells, or what we call it as meristems. So basically that tip right here, the Y would be the meristem. So looking here, these ones are off. So we got the Y. Now, what exactly will be the X that is projecting out? Now, what will be projecting? Developing a bud or developing a leaf? Now, this is where we're going to be like concerning which one would it give more of a sense this. And from what I can see here is that we don't develop a bud from meristem. A bud already has it, so we're definitely developing a leaf because that's what comes out of these guys. So it's D. Next, the graph shows a percentage of stomata that are open in two different species of plants over a 24 hours period. So you have here a plant X, which is this one right here. And then you have plant Y, which is this one right here. Then you can see that there is open stomata, so that means there's more gas exchange. And throughout the days, you can see that this is actually during the night. So this is during the night. And this is basically in the mid of the day, right? Now, so what I can say from this, during the night, since the stomata is low here, so it's closed. So these are also closed. And here it's open. And then plant X here is usually open during the night as well as during the night, but it's closed during the day. So what does this graph show about plant X and plant Y? So plant X absorbs more carbon dioxide at night. Let's see, plant X during the night is right here. And it makes sense, during the night it absorbs more carbon dioxide. Yeah, it's possible. That can make sense because you open the pores and more CO2 comes into the photosynthesis. Now, the plant Y is adapted to desert conditions. Let's see that. Plant Y, it's open during the day. No way. 12 o'clock, midday, open. That's so freaking hot. You definitely want to keep it closed, these tomatoes, so definitely no. Plant X photosynthesize most at midday. Midday, here you're saying that with plant X, which is here, and that's where the photosynthesis most at midday. No, you don't want to keep it closed because you want to get as many CO2 in order to do photosynthesis, so no, it makes no sense. Plant Y only respires during the day. Looking at plant Y, you have it open right about here also, and it has open here. So it can be open right here in the middle of the night. It can be open here around the middle of the night. So no, so the only one that we have here is A. Now we have here an apparatus in the diagram was used to assess the effects of factors on transpiration rate. When I say transpiration rate, we're talking about the evaporation, again, of water, right? So it's the water that's leaving from this leaf, right? That's what transpiration rate is how fast it's doing it. Now we talk about some factors that's working. Now this picture right here is a potometer that you must know as one of the labs for applications in the IB exams. And of course, here we're going to see how much water is coming out of these leaves as the water is moving through this tube. All right, so Which factor will be controlled variable in an experiment designed to assess the effects of temperature on transpiration rate? So transpiration rate will be the dependent here. That means how fast it's doing it. Temperature here will be the independent variable, and they're asking for the control variable. When I say control variable, it's a thing that does not change throughout the entire experiment. So let's see what we have here. Let's see, we have the opening and closing stomata. Now, the closing the open stomata is affected by the temperature, so that's more likely to be like a dependent, so it's changing. The intensity of the light striking the plant, so it's like a sun here that it's striking. Well, that doesn't change, it's always the same thing, so might likely to be B, but I still have to read the rest. The height of the water in the reservoir. That means the reservoir here, the height will change because more water that comes out this way, right, in this direction, the more the water is moving down. So yes, it's cut. And the evaporation of water from the leaves, obviously, that is the dependent, so it does change with time. So the only answer we have is B. Remember, control. Control is the same throughout the experiment. It doesn't change, not even a bit. And that's pretty much it for topic 9.1. Make sure to learn everything about transpiration. Also, make sure that when you're doing this, you know everything from translocation and also about the opening and the closings of the stomatas, because this is where most of the questions are coming to. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.